Hello, viewers. It's Mr. Michael from Three Views, bringing you a new podcast to my episode, The No.1 Sentai Gozyuger. And like always, I'm going to speak very loud and very clearly and very slowly, in case you don't understand it. Also, I'll try to do my best not to breach your heart during this RE podcast recording as well, and of course, the RE feedback as well. And finally, if you're under 18, this RE podcast recording will change to adult language. Once again, if you're under 18, this RE podcast recording will have some adult language if you're under 18. If you're over 18, then you get to watch this audio podcast recording. Now, with just everything else out the way, let's get into the latest episode of Gozyuger. So basically, the latest episode So this episode starts off with a flashback. We see a younger Hal and a younger Kron, and decorated a Christmas tree somewhere in the city and whatnot. So anyway, once the flashback is over, once the Christmas flashback, a young Hal, a young Kron is over, we see Kron, who has now absorbed the powers of Tegajun, telling Mr. Shiny Knife, Miss Sweetcake, and Mr. Fire Candle that he's the new head guy in charge to. He's the new ruler of the bridal and the No.1 world and whatnot. And basically, Fire Candle was not. Was not convinced that Viking was not convinced that he's about Claw having the power of Tekajun, but and Viking tried to attack Claw, but Claw tell him that he did absorb Tekajun in his body and whatnot, etc. And basically, after he used his powers on Fire Candle, so basically Fire Candle, Mr. Sweet Knife, and Mr. Shiny Knife, Miss Sweet Cake, and had no choice but to follow Kron's orders. Meanwhile, the rest is so basically, meanwhile, back at the cafe, Kenshin, Ryoga, and Son Inno were hanging out, along with Hal and the landlady's son, Hal's landlady's son, at the cafe, set up for Christmas. So basically, So basically, the landlady's son is was thinking about, thinking about what he get his mom for Christmas and whatnot. So basically, Kenshin suggests that, whatever you do, make sure it comes from the heart and whatnot, etc., etc. But, Hal was still thinking about the situation going on with Kron. Now he has the power of Tekajun inside him. Now he has the power of Tekajun. Now he has the power of Tekajun inside him. Etc. Think about that situation. And think about how to deal with his big brother Khan and whatnot. Anyway, meanwhile, at somewhere where the Tegasord lives, somewhere in the Tegasord realm of somewhere, or his hideout, whatever. We see Goodburn. We see Goodburn along with Lady Bouquet, who's knocked out, and basically along with Riku and Mashino and whatnot. And basically, the Tegazord was not kind of happy with the situation of Riku and Mashino bringing Lady Bouquet to his hideaway and whatnot, his place hideaway and whatnot, and basically he still believes that June is still evil and whatnot, and etc. But Goodbird said that after spending time with her, I believe she's not a bad person. She's just she's just misguided and whatnot. So basically, we need to come together and whatnot. We need to come together and try to do something, try to help June, because she's not really a bad person. So anyway, they were checking in the others at the at the cafe, and basically, and heard a conversation with the other way, just talking to Hal's landlady's son, and basically, and Goodbird said that maybe I have an idea to bring myself together. So anyway, meanwhile, later that day, we see Hal's landlady along with her son. It seems like they were just hanging out and whatnot. I believe doing some shopping, and out of nowhere, Korn ends up kidnapping Hal's landlady, and the son told Hal that about the situation, and basically, Hal says that don't worry, I'll bring your mother back, and etc. etc. So basically, the other Rangers, So basically, the other Rangers showed up, and met Korn at some ruins and some shit, like some underground tunnel ruins and some shit like that, etc., etc. And basically, it turns out that Korn is able to absorb the Hal's landlady into his body just like he did with Teddy June and whatnot. So anyway. So basically, Fire Candle and Mr. Shiny Eyes and Miss Sweetcake was with him, along with a couple of airy foot soldiers, and basically the Rangers morphed up how transformed to his power-up form, and basically Korn transformed into his Gargoyle form, this time with a cape, and basically they all started to fight each other and whatnot. So anyway, during the fight, Korn was able to summon Tekajun, and basically, and along with Korn was able to summon Tekajun. Fire Candle summoned a mecha, and basically the Tegazord, and so basically Machino showed up with the Tegazord and the real Tegazord. And basically, so Ryoga and Kinjin, used the real Tegazord to combine with the Tegazord to form the real Tegazord mecha, and basically, to fight against Tegajun and Fire Candle's mecha and whatnot. So while the rest of the Rangers, so basically, while the rest of the Rangers were fighting with the foot soldiers and against Korn. So basically, Korn was like, challenge Hal for #1 match, and basically, and basically whoever wins gets their Sentai rings. So anyway, so basically while Hal was busy fighting his brother Korn in a #1 match for their Sentai rings, Kenshin and Son Ino were busy took down the foot soldiers, and now they're fighting against Mr. Shyness and Miss Sweetcake and whatnot. So anyway, in the mecha fight, so basically, things were not going very well, so basically it was going very well for the Tegazord and Goodbird, but Goodbird managed to get through to his mother Tegajun by kind of broke through Korn's control over Tegajun by giving him a sweater that he made for her and whatnot, and basically I made that sweater for you. It took me a while to finish it, and basically and all of a sudden Tegazord was shut out, basically had this Christmas these little sparkling Christmas lights appear in the sky and said Merry Christmas, and basically Goodbird had told had convinced me that you're not a bad person and whatnot, etc., 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 and basically So basically, take a June was overwhelmed, and basically her, Khan's control over Tega June was kind of broken and whatnot, etc., etc. Basically, so basically, like Five Kingdom was like, oh God, okay, okay. So basically, June is back on our side. So basically, we can go back to it. We can go back to our usual, or we can, we can go back to our usual methods. But June said that, I don't want to do this anymore. So basically, I don't want to fight anymore, etc., etc. So anyway, meanwhile, Korn. The battle between Korn and Hal was kind of at a standstill, So basically, they came to a standstill and forced them that forced them both to demorph, and basically like Hal was like, Korn was expressing his feelings about Hal, and Hal was telling expressing his feelings towards Korn, and basically Hal was like, if I haven't, I'm sorry for putting us in this situation, etc., etc. So basically, Hal said that if I didn't run away into that portal that led us to the No.1 world, we wouldn't be fighting each other. So basically, he was asking Korn to give him, but he's like, Korn was like, it's too late to forget this. So let's get back down to business. So anyway, so they transformed. So basically, both of them retransformed, and basically Hal ended up freeing his landlady, and therefore defeating Korn in the No.1 battle and winning his Sentai rings and whatnot. So basically, seems like everything was over for Korn and whatnot. He lost his Sentai rings. He lost his control over Tega June. So anyway, and basically, it seems like everything was over for Korn. As for June, June was telling Fight Channel that I can't fight anymore. So basically, Fight Channel doing you mean. So basically, I can't go back to what we were doing before. So basically, and that's when June used her powers to try to suck Fight Channel along with his mecha inside a portal that leads back to the No.1 world and whatnot. And basically, Five Channel was not happy with the situation that was going on. So basically, before him and his mecha got sucked back into the portal that led to the No.1 world. He started to fire off some shots for his mecha, and basically one of the shots was about to hit Hal, but Korn ended up shielding Hal from the blast, and therefore ended up dying. Before he ended up dying, I remember that final Christmas that night before Christmas, before we went to the No.1 world. Your Christmas was to always have fun with me and whatnot. So basically, I forget you, brother, and basically Korn ended up dying in that tunnel, and Hal was like, oh, damn it. She started to cry and whatnot, and the rest of the Rangers everybody was kind of sad that situation of how situated, how situated that his brother is, basically, is now dead and whatnot. So anyway, meanwhile, back at Tegaso's hiding place, June was like, was trying to was trying to lead and trying to, was accepting what to do now, and basically like, the Tegaso and Goodburn was like, along with Lady Bouquet and Mr. Sweetcake, along with Mrs. Sweetcake and Mr. Shiny Knife, like, we could try to do stuff, and we could try to try to help the world while forcing to change it, work together to help this world along with the people and whatnot. So basically, and also we could be a family and whatnot. And basically, Taking was just was kind of accepting of being a family with Goodbird and Taking June and whatnot. And basically, et cetera, et cetera. Meanwhile, back at the cafe, so they said back at the cafe is Christmas Day, and basically, the landlady's son gave him a special Christmas present, made from the heart, and basically a drawing of him and his mom and whatnot, and basically the landlady's on the house landlady gave her son some sneakers. So anyway, after exchanging Christmas gifts, how was still kind of bummed up about what happened to Corn and whatnot. And so basically the landlady said, thank Hal for saving his mom and whatnot, set up from Corn and whatnot. Yeah, and out of nowhere, we see Corn's sword, his version of the the wolf. We see Corn's version of the wolf kind of fishing, came flying in the cafe, and turns out the Tegasword, managed to transfer Corn's, Corn's spirit inside his sword, and basically eventually I made it. So basically, I made a special wish, I made a special deal with your brother, So basically, he helped you out and whatnot in that sword form, and basically he will eventually come human again. So basically, Khan was happy with the situation that his brother that he has the opportunity to bring his brother back, and after once he collects all the Sentai rings, he has the opportunity to bring his brother back, brother back from brother back out of that, to bring his brother back out of that, out of the sword into his body again and whatnot, etc., etc. So anyway, the episode. So basically, while everybody was celebrating at the cafe and whatnot, and such we see Five Cat all alone at the Barter Castle, all alone by himself in the Barter Castle, not assessing that, that his mission, that the Barter's mission is over, and that not accepting that, that the mission, that the Barter mission is over. June is gone. June is gone, Bouquet is gone, Mr. Shiny Nice and Miss Treat Cake is gone and whatnot, and basically, he won't accept the changes that happen, during these, during these events, and therefore the episode ends with Bioshock all alone at the Vita Castle in the No.1 world by himself. And this is how the episode ended on this note. So anyway, I feel sorry for Fire Candles. Fire Candles did not deserve to be treated that way by June and whatnot. So basically, I felt like June could have, basically, tried better to persuade Fire Candle to, join up with them and and basically find a new way to be a part of the world or whatnot. So anyway, if this is Sincere Michael, sign off for 3 years. So happy holidays, everybody. One.